MAIT stands for Multidisciplinary Accident Investigation Team. Our primary responsibility is we're a resource to local CHP area offices and allied agencies, and we're called upon to come out and process some of these more major either crash or crime scenes. Everyone will have some role or responsibility and some sort of technology or tool or device that they're going to use to document or measure or possibly collect evidence at the crash or a crime scene. This is one of our latest additions to the mini tools that we use. This is essentially our flying camera. This has the ability to take hundreds of pictures overhead. We can use those images and recreate the scene using a software program, and it creates what's called an orthomosaic image. And it's just essentially a photographic map of the scene.
So it gives you that complete aerial view.
Yes, it does.
So what are these things we have here, and what do they do?
So this is another measuring device that we have. This is called the Total Station Survey System. It's essentially a big fancy measuring tape. So we're able to set this up using the rod and prism. We can take measurements of the scene. Those measurements are recorded in a data collector, and we're able to take those back and use in a software program.
Do all of these tools talk to one another essentially?
Yeah, so all of the data that we gather, we have the ability to combine it so we can accurately recreate the crime or crash scene.
This is an investigator that is in a Tyvek suit, and he is collecting DNA evidence from a vehicle for including in our report and preservation for further review.
So evac was told to come out here and make a pretty sharp turn without any braking, simulating what a driver would do if they were taking a turn a little bit too hot, so that our teams could come out here and take measurements looking for certain kinds of tire friction marks and indications in those marks. And we have some equations that they're going to plug some numbers into, and they'll be able to calculate how fast that evac driver was driving when he laid down this mark. These days, there's not much you can hide in a crash. These cars are recording a lot of information. We can tell if lights were on, or if there was a steering input, if the throttle was being pressed, the brake. Some of these vehicles have cameras all the way around it, and they tell the whole story as well. And we just use our evidence that we get from the scene and piece all of that together with the data that's coming from the cars, and it tells the whole story.
Today, Mait is conducting a forensic mechanical inspection on this vehicle that was involved in a crash as part of our casework. These inspections are usually conducted by a motor carrier specialist 1, and there's one MCS 1 assigned to every team across the state in each division. Today, Robert is currently documenting the different systems that are part of the vehicle. These systems include the powertrain system, which is the engine all the way through the drive line to the hub of the axles, brakes, tires, and wheels. It includes fluids underneath the hood. It includes the throttle system, all of the braking system, including the interior of the vehicle, which includes restraint systems, supplemental restraint systems, even light switches and ignition.
What is the importance of evaluating the interior systems, such as the safety restraint system?
We want to evaluate whether or not there was any deficiency that may have contributed to injury or death. With the supplemental restraint systems like the airbags and pretensioners and seat belts, but we have further equipment to evaluate the actual module that commands that system to deploy.
So MAIT's very thorough in these investigations.
Yes, and that's why multidisciplinary is part of our name or our acronym, is because we are looking at an incident over multiple facets and factors and using multiple disciplines to analyze the event.
Now, that was actually just a small part of what goes into MAIT investigations. Well, the investigators and the associates do the bulk of their work back here at the office. Every case is going to be assigned by a team leader to a lead investigator. But the majority of the work done, most of the time, is done by multiple individuals, if not the entire team. Officer Yu here is using 3D point clouds and some photos of damaged vehicles to do a damage assessment. He may be looking for match points between the vehicles to see how they interacted with one another, possibly supporting speeds that get determined or direction of travel, signs of braking, that kind of thing. He could also end up analyzing the interior of the vehicle to determine how certain injuries on occupants occurred, or maybe even support where each of them were seated. So Officer Ainsworth is working on some photogrammetry and diagramming the evidence locations that were collected from the scene. He may extract some of the measurements to use in various calculations to help determine how the vehicles moved across the roadway relative to the others, or even their speeds.
What is Officer Casinger working on here?
Well, he's using some of the evidence collected from the vehicle's event data recorders and the orthomosaic file the drone captured to run through crash simulation software. This helps us not only to create a demonstrative for the parties of interest or court, but it can also help us support our conclusions. Most vehicles today are recording a lot of information, but in order for that information to be applied and included in our reports, it has to be vetted to ensure it's accurate and applicable in the case. So it's imperative we analyze every aspect without bias and ensure our experts are factually determining every causation factor.
Everyday road patrol officers are doing crash reports. I have an example of a major injury crash report here. Can you tell me what a Mait report, and show me what a Mait report looks like? It sounds like a lot of information goes into this.
Yeah, they can be over 1,000 pages long. So there's a lot of information, but it really depends on the scope of the investigation from the requester. Since we're just assisting allied agencies and CHP area offices, it's really dependent upon their request. But regardless, just like a scientific paper in a journal is reviewed by peers, we do the same thing. Our entire team, sometimes multiple teams, will review our reports to ensure that all the information has been vetted and it's based in scientific fact from our findings. This helps us present our case as an unbiased and thorough presentation when it goes to the parties of interest or even to court.
Do Mait members get called to court for these cases?
Absolutely. Not always, but often. Mait investigators are then qualified by the court as expert witnesses, because a lot of times these cases that we're tasked with have very serious allegations attached to them, or even lawsuits. The opposition sometimes will get experts, whether it's a hired reconstructionist or other types of experts, and they'll call them in to support their case. And Mait investigators will be called upon to refute any information that they're presenting on that case that is erroneous or inaccurate or unfounded or something like that, so that the pursuit of justice is sought.